Welcome to another edition of That Time When. Matt Miller with you at Trek Zone HQ. This is the podcast where we take you through the archive here at Trek Zone, look through the past interviews with sci-fi alumni that we've done, and give you the links to catch those interviews in full. Today, not a sci-fi alum, but a space veteran. Australia's only astronaut, Dr. Andy Thomas, spoke with me at the World Science Fair, which happened for the first time outside New York in Brisbane a couple of years ago.
Taking you back through the library of Trek Zone in a bite-sized podcast. That Time When.
Today's guest is so far Australia's only astronaut. His name is Dr. Andy Thomas, and he's joining me from the World Science Fair, happening for the first time outside of New York in Brisbane. Dr. Thomas, thanks for your time. What inspired you to be an astronaut?
Well, when I was growing up, it was the early days of the space program. I remember, I'm old enough to remember the flights of Alan Shepard and John Glenn. And of course, I remember the moon landings very clearly. I was a student at university. And I looked at those and thought, what a great adventure. Wouldn't it be amazing to be involved in that? But for a kid growing up in Adelaide, that wasn't a very realistic prospect. But later in life, after I'd got an engineering degree and a PhD, I realized I could actually make that dream come true. And I then focused my career to getting the kind of credentials that I thought would be needed to become an astronaut, and I was successful in applying.
Well, you managed to achieve that with a Bachelor of Engineering in Mechanical Engineering with first-class honours from the University of Adelaide. And then you moved to the US and worked with Lockheed Martin throughout the 80s. In '92, you were selected by NASA and spent 12 months training to join the Astronaut Corps. What did that involve?
I should say I also got a PhD at the University of Adelaide, and I think that was actually a pivotal education step that I needed in order to apply to the astronaut program. My first flight was, as you said, in 1996, and that was a 10-day mission on the Shuttle Endeavour. And that was preceded by a year of pretty intensive training on the specific systems that we were going to fly on that mission, as well as on all the systems that make the shuttle operate, because we had to operate the vehicle safely. And that's the kind of thing you typically do when you're training for a specific flight.
Before you flew in space, you worked as an astronaut support person. What does that role involve?
Oh, that was actually an assignment I had. While you were waiting for a flight or between flight assignments, NASA give you a job to support the overall flight program. And the first one I had after I finished my astronaut candidacy training was what they call an astronaut support person, which is the role you have to go down to the Cape and act as a liaison between what the people are doing to process the launch vehicles at the Cape and the astronaut office, which is back in Houston. So I spent a lot of time going back and forth to Cape Canaveral and working with the launch directors. And then ultimately I had the role on one flight, STS-59, I remember it, to actually assist the crew strapping in on day of launch and closing the hatch on them and sending them on their way.
That must have been a surreal experience to strap in those astronauts and send them off to space.
It was. And one of the things you get to do is you go out to the launch pad about 5 hours before the actual launch. And of course, there's no one there because of the dangers, and it's very quiet. And you have the whole shuttle to yourself. You're just sitting in the shuttle by yourself, listening to the communication loops. And it's usually the middle of the night. And that was a very surreal moment, and it made me realize just what an exciting adventure I was involved in.
Are you watching us on YouTube? Click the link in the description to catch this interview in full now. Maybe you're listening to us on your favourite podcast app. Then beam over to our official watch page and click the link there.